Hidden beneath the densest rainforest on Earth, something impossible has been discovered. Over 10,000 massive earthworks, complex geometric patterns, ancient roads connecting vast settlements. A civilization so advanced, it rivaled the great empires of the ancient world. But here's what makes this discovery truly shocking. We've been walking over these structures for 500 years, and we never knew they existed, until one technology changed everything. This is the lost civilization of the Amazon, revealed by LIDAR, and what we're finding challenges everything we thought we knew about the pre-Columbian Americas. In 2022, archaeologists published findings that would rewrite the history of the Amazon basin. Using LIDAR technology, light detection and ranging, researchers scanned over 200,000 square kilometers of rainforest in Bolivia, Brazil, and Ecuador. What they found was staggering. More than 10,000 previously unknown earthworks dating back over 2,000 years. These weren't simple villages. We're talking about massive geometric enclosures, some over 300 meters in diameter, raised platforms, defensive ditches, and road networks stretching for kilometers, connecting hundreds of settlements. This discovery demolishes the long-held belief that the Amazon was a pristine wilderness before European contact. Instead, evidence now suggests that millions of people once lived here, in one of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian civilizations ever discovered. The civilizations of the Amazon flourished between 1500 BCE and 1500 CE, a span of 3,000 years. At their peak around 1250 CE, archaeological evidence suggests that between 8 and 10 million people lived across the Amazon basin. That's more than the population of London at the same time. These weren't scattered nomadic tribes. They were organized societies capable of massive engineering projects. The earthworks themselves required moving millions of cubic meters of soil, with nothing but wooden tools and human labor. Some of the largest sites, like the geoglyphs in Acre, Brazil, cover areas larger than 30 football fields. But the true genius was their agricultural technology. They created Terra, Preta, black earth, an artificial soil so nutrient-rich that it's still more fertile than surrounding soils 500 years later. This allowed them to sustain large populations in an environment that modern science once deemed impossible for agriculture. They engineered raised field systems to manage seasonal flooding. They cultivated over 80 different domesticated plant species, and they managed the forest itself, creating what scientists now call cultural forests, landscapes shaped by human hands to maximize food production while maintaining biodiversity. This wasn't wilderness. It was a carefully engineered garden on a continental scale. So how do we know all this? The breakthrough came from LIDAR, a technology that fires millions of laser pulses from aircraft, penetrating through dense vegetation to map the ground surface below. In 2018, a team led by archaeologist Heiko Prumers from the German Archaeological Institute conducted the first major LIDAR survey in the Llanos de Mojos region of Bolivia. What they found was extraordinary. Over 300 previously unknown sites in just a 4,500 square kilometer area. Then, in 2022, a massive collaborative study published in the journal Nature analyzed LIDAR data from across the entire southwestern Amazon. Led by researchers from the University of Exeter and the National Institute of Amazonian Research in Brazil, the study identified 26 distinct earthwork sites in the state of Acre alone, with the largest, Jacó Sá, covering over 400 hectares. Carbon dating of charcoal samples from these sites has been crucial. At the earthworks in Rondônia, Excavations led by Dr. Jennifer Watling in 2017 revealed occupation layers dating from 1400 BCE to 1500 CE. That's nearly 3,000 years of continuous habitation. The pottery analysis tells us even more. Archaeologists have identified distinct ceramic traditions, the Barankoid culture from around 400 BCE, and later the polychrome tradition starting around 500 CE. Each tradition shows increasing sophistication, better firing techniques, more complex designs, and standardized forms suggesting organized production. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the Terra Preta itself. Soil analysis conducted by Dr. Michael Heckenberger's team at the University of Florida found charcoal, bone fragments, and pottery shards mixed into the soil at depths of up to 2 meters, proof of intensive, long-term occupation and deliberate soil engineering. The earthworks show clear defensive purposes. Many sites have concentric ditches and embankments, some ditches reaching 11 meters deep and 30 meters wide. But they weren't just fortifications. Ground-penetrating radar reveals that many contained internal structures, residential platforms, ceremonial mounds, and storage areas. This is evidence of complex, organized societies with social hierarchies, specialized labor, and military defense. So, if millions of people once lived in the Amazon in sophisticated societies, the obvious question is, what happened to them? Theory 1 is the most widely accepted explanation among archaeologists, and it's devastating in its simplicity. European contact brought diseases that wiped out up to 95% of the indigenous population within a century. When Spanish conquistador Francisco de Orellana became the first European to navigate the Amazon River in 1542, he reported seeing large, prosperous settlements lining the riverbanks, villages so close together that smoke from one was visible from the next. He described organized societies with pottery, woven textiles, and abundant food stores. But when subsequent expeditions arrived just 50 years later, those settlements were gone. Anthropologist William Denevan estimates that the Amazon basin had a population of at least 6.8 million in 1492. By 1650, it had collapsed to fewer than 1 million. The culprit? Diseases for which indigenous peoples had no immunity: smallpox, measles, typhus, and influenza. These diseases didn't just kill through direct infection, they destroyed social structures. When epidemics swept through communities, they killed disproportionately: the elderly who held knowledge, the leaders who organized labor, the skilled workers who maintained agricultural systems. The Terra Preta fields required constant management. The earthworks needed maintenance. The complex irrigation systems demanded coordinated effort. When the population collapsed, so did the infrastructure. Within a generation, the jungle reclaimed the earthworks. The evidence for this theory is strong. Pollen analysis from lake sediments shows a dramatic decline in maize cultivation around 1600 CE, coinciding with European contact. Tree ring data from the Amazon shows a sudden increase in forest growth during this same period, what scientists call the Amazonian reforestation. This wasn't natural. It was the result of millions of acres of cultivated land being abandoned as populations died. Historical records support this timeline. Spanish missionary accounts from the 1600s describe encountering indigenous survivors who spoke of massive die-offs within living memory. Archaeological excavations show occupation layers ending abruptly in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. But here's where Theory 1 gets complicated. Recent research has revealed problems with this explanation. LIDAR surveys have identified earthwork sites in remote areas that show abandonment before European contact, some as early as 1400 CE, nearly a century before Columbus even reached the Americas. At sites in the Upper Xingu region, Dr. Michael Heckenberger's excavations found evidence of population decline beginning around 1450 CE, with some smaller settlements being abandoned decades before any European arrived. This suggests that not everything can be blamed on disease. Something else was already happening: climate change, resource depletion, or internal social collapse. The disease theory explains the final catastrophic collapse, but it may not explain the whole story. Theory 2 shifts the focus away from European disease and toward environmental factors, specifically climate change that was already destabilizing Amazon civilizations before Europeans ever arrived. This theory has gained significant support from paleoclimatology research over the past decade. In 2014, a study published in the journal Nature Geoscience analyzed sediment cores from Lake Preta in the Brazilian Amazon. These cores revealed a dramatic climate shift beginning around 1400 CE, a period of severe drought that lasted for over a century. This wasn't a brief dry spell. We're talking about a megadrought that reduced rainfall by 30 to 40% across the southern Amazon basin. For civilizations dependent on complex water management systems, this would have been catastrophic. The raised field agriculture that sustained millions required carefully managed flooding cycles. When the rains failed, those systems collapsed. Tree ring analysis from the Amazon provides additional evidence. Research by Dr. Jochen Schongart from Brazil's National Institute of Amazonian Research identified multiple severe drought events between 1400 and 1500 CE, with the most extreme occurring between 1450 and 1480 CE. These droughts coincide precisely with the abandonment dates found at multiple earthwork sites. But drought wasn't the only environmental stress. Ice core data from the Andes reveals increased volcanic activity during the same period, particularly the massive eruption of Mount Kauai in Vanuatu in 1452 CE, one of the largest eruptions of the past millennium. This eruption injected massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, causing global cooling and disrupting weather patterns across South America. The result? Shorter growing seasons, unpredictable rainfall, and agricultural failure. The evidence shows up in the archaeological record. Excavations at the Ibibate site in Bolivia, led by Dr. John Walker, revealed a sudden shift in subsistence patterns around 1450 CE. People began relying more heavily on wild resources, fish and forest game, rather than cultivated crops. Pottery used for cooking and storage decreased dramatically, while tools for fishing and hunting increased. This suggests agricultural systems were failing. The theory also explains the differential abandonment patterns. LIDAR data shows that sites in the drier southern Amazon were abandoned first, in the late 1300s and early 1400s. Sites in the wetter northern regions lasted longer, some surviving until European contact. This geographic pattern matches perfectly with what we know about the drought's distribution. It hit the south hardest. Population stress from climate change could have triggered other cascading failures. When food became scarce, competition for resources likely increased. Evidence of increased fortification at some sites during this period suggests rising conflict. Trade networks that had connected different regions began to break down. Without trade, specialized knowledge and resources couldn't be shared. The social complexity that made these large settlements possible began to unravel. But Theory 2 also has weaknesses. While it explains the pre-contact abandonments, it doesn't explain why the entire civilization collapsed so completely. Droughts are cyclical. They end. Why didn't populations recover when the rains returned? And why did the knowledge of Terra Preta creation, the engineering expertise, and the agricultural innovations disappear so thoroughly? The answer, many researchers now believe, is that both theories are correct. Climate change weakened the civilizations between 1400 and 1500 CE, causing some abandonments and reducing populations. Then, European diseases delivered the final, catastrophic blow between 1550 and 1650 CE, hitting societies that were already stressed and vulnerable. It wasn't one cause. It was a combination of environmental collapse followed by epidemic disease that together destroyed one of the most sophisticated civilizations in pre-Columbian America. But even the combined climate and disease theory leaves crucial questions unanswered, because new archaeological evidence is revealing complications that don't fit neatly into either explanation. First, there's the problem of environmental degradation from the civilization itself. Recent soil analysis by Dr. Crystal McMichael at the University of Amsterdam has revealed something troubling: evidence of soil depletion and erosion at several major earthwork sites dating to the decades before abandonment. Despite the famous fertility of Terra Preta, it turns out you can exhaust even artificially enriched soil if you continuously cultivate the same land for centuries without proper rotation. At the Laguna Granja site in Peru, excavations show that by 1400 CE, farmers were having to dig deeper into the earth to find fertile soil layers, suggesting surface soils were becoming depleted. Pollen records from the same period show a shift from diverse forest management to more intensive single-crop cultivation, maize replacing the varied species that had previously been grown. This suggests desperation, populations trying to squeeze more food from degrading land. Then, there's deforestation. Charcoal analysis from multiple sites indicates extensive burning for agriculture between 1200 and 1400 CE, far more than in earlier periods. Tree pollen decreases while grass and weed pollen increases. The civilization may have literally been cutting down the forest that sustained it, removing the canopy that protected soil, regulated rainfall, and provided wild resources. But here's what's truly puzzling. Indigenous knowledge didn't completely disappear. Modern indigenous communities across the Amazon still practice sophisticated forest management techniques that clearly descend from the ancient traditions. They still create small-scale Terra Preta. They still use plant species that were domesticated thousands of years ago. So if the knowledge survived in some form, why didn't the large-scale civilization? Anthropologist Dr. Laura Furquim from the University of Exeter has documented over 80 plant species still cultivated by indigenous communities that show clear signs of ancient domestication, including trees that only grow in very specific locations that match ancient earthwork sites. This suggests a more complex picture. Not total collapse, but transformation. The large centralized societies collapsed, but smaller, more mobile groups survived by adapting to changed conditions. They abandoned the earthworks, the raised field systems, and the dense settlements, but they retained the core knowledge of forest management and crop cultivation. Recent research has also identified something unexpected: evidence of deliberate abandonment. At some sites, archaeologists have found structures that were carefully dismantled rather than simply left to decay. Useful materials, stone tools, pottery, wooden posts were removed before departure. This wasn't panicked flight from disease. This was organized relocation. Why? Some researchers now propose a third contributing factor we haven't fully explored: warfare and political instability. Burned defensive structures at several sites, including the Severino Calazans earthworks in Brazil, suggest violent conflict. Mass burial sites dating to the mid-1400s have been discovered in the Upper Xingu. Perhaps climate stress and environmental degradation didn't just cause people to abandon sites. They triggered competition, conflict, and the breakdown of the political systems that held these large societies together. When the centralized authority collapsed, people dispersed to smaller, more defensible, more sustainable settlements. Here's the uncomfortable truth archaeologists are now facing. We may be asking the wrong question. Instead of, what killed this civilization, we should be asking, why did this particular form of large-scale settlement collapse while indigenous societies continued to thrive in different forms? The disappearance of the earthwork civilizations doesn't mean indigenous peoples disappeared. It means their way of organizing society changed in response to multiple pressures. So, where does the research stand today? The archaeological consensus in 2024 is that we're looking at a multi-causal collapse. Environmental stress beginning around 1400 CE, followed by European disease after 1542, with additional factors including warfare, resource depletion, and political fragmentation all playing roles. But the story is still being written as new technologies reveal more about this lost civilization every year. LIDAR technology has advanced dramatically since those first surveys. In 2023, a Brazilian-German research team using high-resolution LIDAR scanned over 100,000 square kilometers in Rondônia and Mato Grosso, identifying an additional 1,200 previously unknown earthwork sites. The technology can now penetrate even denser canopy and distinguish between natural features and human-made structures with 95% accuracy. What they're finding is staggering, evidence of urban planning. Sites aren't randomly placed. They're positioned at regular intervals along ancient road networks, suggesting centralized planning and administration. DNA analysis is revealing population movements we never knew occurred. In 2022, research published in Science Advances analyzed ancient DNA from remains at 15 different earthwork sites. The results showed two distinct genetic signatures: an older population present from 1500 BCE to 900 CE, and a newer population that appears around 1000 CE and becomes dominant by 1200 CE. This suggests major migration and population replacement, possibly conquest, centuries before the collapse. Dr. Jose Iriarte's team at the University of Exeter has been using isotope analysis of tooth enamel to track individual life histories. They found evidence that some individuals buried at earthwork sites weren't born there. Their childhood diet signatures show they came from hundreds of kilometers away. This suggests long-distance trade, marriage alliances, or forced relocation of populations. Ground-penetrating radar is revealing what's beneath the earthworks without excavation. Surveys conducted in 2023 at the Bella Vista site in Bolivia detected buried plazas, residential platforms, and what appears to be a complex drainage system beneath the surface. Architecture far more sophisticated than what's visible from above. Remote sensing is also revealing the true scale of their impact on the landscape. Satellite analysis using thermal imaging shows that Terra Preta deposits extend across an estimated 3.2 million square kilometers, nearly 10% of the entire Amazon basin. This wasn't light-touch forest management. This was landscape-scale engineering. Current excavations are focusing on understanding daily life. At the Monte Castelo site in Brazil, Dr. Eduardo Neves' team is excavating residential areas, finding evidence of specialized craft production, pottery workshops, stone tool manufacturing areas, and what appears to be centralized food storage facilities. This suggests economic specialization and social hierarchy far more complex than previously imagined. Digital reconstruction technology is bringing these sites back to life. Using LIDAR data combined with archaeological findings, researchers have created 3D models of what the earthwork cities would have looked like at their peak. The models suggest populations of individual sites reaching 5,000 to 10,000 people, comparable to medieval European cities. But debates continue. Some researchers, like Dr. Anna Roosevelt at the University of Illinois, argue that population estimates are too high and that the earthworks were primarily ceremonial centers rather than densely populated cities. Others, like Dr. Michael Heckenberger, maintain that the evidence supports truly urban settlements. The implications of this research extend far beyond the Amazon. It's forcing archaeologists to rethink assumptions about pristine wilderness and indigenous impact on landscapes worldwide. The Amazon wasn't an untouched Eden. It was a garden, carefully cultivated for thousands of years. And what we're learning challenges the narrative of inevitable progress. These societies developed sustainable technologies, Terra Preta, agroforestry, managed biodiversity, that modern agriculture has yet to replicate. Their collapse wasn't because they were primitive. It was because multiple catastrophic factors, some environmental, some human, converged in a way they couldn't survive. So what do we actually know about the lost civilization of the Amazon? Here's what the evidence tells us with confidence. Between 1500 BCE and 1500 CE, a sophisticated civilization flourished across the Amazon basin, with populations reaching 8 to 10 million at its peak around 1250 CE. They engineered over 10,000 earthwork sites, massive geometric structures requiring millions of cubic meters of earth to be moved. They created Terra Preta, an artificial soil still more fertile than natural soils 500 years later. They managed the forest on a continental scale, cultivating over 80 domesticated species and creating what scientists now call cultural forests. Their road networks connected hundreds of settlements. Their architectural planning rivaled anything in medieval Europe. This was not a primitive society. This was one of the most sophisticated civilizations in the pre-Columbian Americas, and we're only now discovering its true scale. We also know the civilization collapsed. Between 1400 and 1650 CE, the large earthwork settlements were abandoned. The population crashed from millions to hundreds of thousands. The forest reclaimed the earthworks, hiding them for 5 centuries. But here's what remains uncertain: the precise causes and their relative importance. Climate change, particularly severe megadroughts between 1400 and 1500 CE, clearly played a role. Multiple drought events, possibly intensified by volcanic eruptions, would have devastated their water-dependent agricultural systems. European diseases after 1542 CE killed an estimated 90 to 95% of the surviving population. This much is documented. But we also have evidence of environmental degradation from the civilization itself: soil depletion, deforestation, and resource exhaustion. We have evidence of warfare and political instability. We have evidence of deliberate, organized abandonment rather than catastrophic collapse. And critically, we have evidence of survival and transformation. Indigenous communities that maintain the core knowledge even as the large-scale settlements disappeared. What we're really looking at isn't a simple story of collapse. It's a complex narrative of environmental stress, disease, warfare, resource depletion, and societal transformation all intersecting over 250 years. Some sites were abandoned before Europeans arrived. Others survived until disease finished what drought had begun. The earthwork cities collapsed, but the people and their knowledge adapted and survived in different forms. The significance of this discovery extends far beyond archaeology. It challenges the myth of the pristine wilderness. It demonstrates that indigenous peoples had profound impacts on their landscapes, impacts that were generally sustainable for thousands of years. It shows that so-called primitive societies developed technologies, soil engineering, forest management, sustainable agriculture, that modern science is only now beginning to understand and replicate. And it reminds us that even the most sophisticated civilizations are vulnerable when multiple crises converge. The Amazon's lost civilization wasn't destroyed by a single catastrophe. It was overwhelmed by a perfect storm of environmental change, disease, resource stress, and political instability that no society, no matter how advanced, could have survived intact. The Amazon's lost civilization reminds us that history is far more complex than we imagine, and that there are still countless secrets hidden beneath the world's rainforests, waiting for technology to reveal them. So what do you think? Was it climate change, disease, environmental exhaustion, or a combination of all three that brought down this sophisticated society? Share your theory in the comments below. If you found this deep dive fascinating, make sure to subscribe. We're using cutting-edge technology like LIDAR, DNA analysis, and satellite imaging to uncover ancient mysteries that rewrite history. There's so much more to explore. Keep questioning what really happened.